Welcome to Global Morning.
Death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure. If you don't say we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call the police station, before they even leave, they take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle, as to strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a life. The president never gave me any deadline.
Global Weekend Show. My name is Godwin Sunday. Well, let's call this the post-Valentine episode of the Global Morning Show. Now, if you've taken a very keen look at the Valentine season, and we've been able to see some exploration yesterday. People came out in their numbers on a particular corner, even here in the Federal Capital Territory, to celebrate the Valentine's season. And it was fun. Different quarters saw love being expressed in different shades. We saw people excited about even proclaiming their love to their loved ones, and it was really something to go home with. It was an interesting day yesterday, but we just hope that this love conversations will continue to go on and on, because the message of love cannot be overemphasized. We need to continue to preach love over and over again. Why is this so? This is so because love is the primary thing that bonds humanity, that binds us together. So imagine if all the 7 continents across the world are all preaching love, the message of love. What will happen is that we're going to take out that redundancy, that skeptical feel that has to do with hate, because love overcomes hate. And by so doing, we won't be hearing wars across the world, because love would have taken over, and the people will be preaching, talking about love, love and love. So I just hope that Valentine will not be coming once in a year, but rather it will be a mutual thing that will be in our heart, will be in our soul, be in our spirit. That we talk love, we preach love, and we demonstrate love every day of the year. The 365 days of the year will be used to express love and what love is all about. Well, it's still a season of love because this is still the week of love, but love does not end with Valentine. It does not end with Valentine. It continues with Valentine, and also it moves on. We must spread this love. And when we talk about love in this instance, is not the what people were celebrating throughout yesterday. We saw also and had conversations with people on the street, and it was really interesting what Valentine meant to them. Now, you'll be surprised to know that to a lot of people, Valentine meant that they need to not just express love, but also to go out and probably hang out with friends, hang out with their spouses, hang out with their fiancé and their loved ones and what have you. Now, this can have negative or positive impact even on relationship. A lot of people came out yesterday to demonstrate that love is the key thing. But then there's a question that questions are begging for answer. One of those questions is Valentine all about relationship? What's the origin of Valentine? Of course, he died because he was preaching love, but then have we metamorphosed and transformed the definition of Valentine is that, and all of those ceremonies that surrounds St. Valentine's season, have we automatically changed from that narrative into something unusual? Because over the years we've seen people talk about Valentine, and what comes to your head is love, but not in the true sense of demonstrating practical love, but the other way around. We just hope that the right messages will be sent out, and Valentine will not be one of conversation. It will continue to go on. We'll go for a short break, and when we come back, we'll be talking newspapers review. Please stay with us even on Weekend Global Morning. The show continues in a moment.
Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
Global Morning aims to deliver newspaper reviews and latest news with experts on key global issues,
and at the same time keeping you well informed about important events, both national and international.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest.
The president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
Welcome back to Weekend Global Morning, and right now we'll be going straight to the newspaper review, and we're starting with the Nation's newspaper, where we have the big story is Ayo Adebanjo, President Bola Tinubu saying that he was a father figure despite our political differences, and that's coming from Tinubu. You can find out on the Nation newspaper on page 2 and page 3. It has a rider on it that Buhari, Obasanjo, Fasoranti, others mourn late Afenifere leader. Is Life and Times. You can find that big story on page 2 and 3 of the Nation's newspaper. And it also have other stories above the big story, which is FG lawmakers kick over Binance executive $150 million bribe. And it has a rider that says we will meet in court, says House member Agbese. And also another rider that says that no comment because we are already in court. Now also we have another big story in the Nation's paper. Don't forget the Binance story. You can find it on the page 6 of the Nation's newspaper. Also we have a very another interesting story where we have our $700 million Delta Steel Company was sold for $30 million by BPE. That's the Bureau of Public and what have you. So we moved also to another very interesting story even on this. We have on entertainment on the Nation's newspaper. We have new twist in Two-Face Idibia's love triangle, and this with a rider that says family petitions DSS claim he has been missing since February 10th. And also another rider that says mother begs a bill lawmaker to free him. And you can find this story on page 4 of the Nation's newspaper. Another story also, we have Unizik expels female students who fought lecturer over video. You can also find that on page 4 of the Nation's newspaper. Also we have the Nation's newspaper, Osun APC will not participate in illegal LG polls, Oyetola declares. You can find that story on page 27 of the Nation's newspaper. Now this is a very interesting conversation. Over the week we've had the big story for me, and what caught my fancy is, what caught my attention rather, is the story of the Two-Face Idibia and his love story, because we're still talking about love and Valentine. Said he has been missing. The family have come out to say that he has been missing since February 10th. But of course, videos have emerged of Two-Face Idibia being seen in Edo State House of Assembly. Now, that is a very funny scenario, but then the face of Two-Face Idibia was not actually captured in full essence on that video, but we get to see clips of that video even circulating around the internet, which means his whereabouts is still very, very known to all. And even on the social media land, we've seen him come out to say he wants to get married and all of this and all of that. But the mom again is thinking, or she's feeling, that the son is being under some form of spell by the Edo State lawmaker Osawaru, and we hope that this old quagmire will be put behind the doors and they can go back to their family and settle this and not make this a public conversation. But then away from that, let's move to This Day newspaper, where we have above the title, we have two Nigerians crude condensate output hit over 3-year high in boost for 2025 budget. And we have the big story here, which says that concerned as U.S. congressman alleges USAID funded Boko Haram. And we have a story here that says Tinubu, Obasanjo, Jonathan Buhari, Atiku, Obi governors, others mourn Pa Adebanjo at 96. And we've taken that story already on the Nation's newspaper. But then you can find this story, the big story here on page 5 of This Day newspaper, which is concerned as U.S. congressman alleges USAID funded Boko Haram. Now we'll be proud this time. This is a big story. I know that the chief of defense staff and other security agencies have come out to indirectly say that some of the insurgents that we have been experiencing in the country is being funded by foreign partners. But for a congressman at this point to come out to say that the USAID, which is a support program by the United States of America, have been instrumental to funding Boko Haram, banditry, and other form of insurgency, even in Nigeria. Now, this is cause for concern. I think the Nigerian government should take this conversation very serious at this point, because we need to look at all the angles to this story and ensure that we are crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's as far as this open confession, like I would like to say, is coming out even from a congressman in the United States. Let's know what they know, and from there we can be able to address some of the concerns that have been raised. So, is this more of a conspiracy to further push for the agenda of the USAID to be scrapped, especially from developing countries? Could this be an agenda? Now, could this be to feel the conversation along the line that USA playing the role of a big brother is negatively impacting on Africa and other developing countries? What are the other sides of the story? Could it be that the congressman, even in the United States of America, is not in the right standing with previous administration of the United States presidents, and as such, conversation of this magnitude are rising in order to give Donald Trump the kind of accolades that he deserves, or that he needs, and the kind of patting at the back that he needs at this point to be able to pull the Congress and make the Congress to come into that decision-making point at this time, to say that, hey, if the USAID has been doing XYZ, then automatically we should withdraw support from developing countries, especially in Africa. But if this is a fact to go by with, are there substantial evidence to show that this accusation and also this claim as laid by a congressman from the United States of America is correct? But then these are all questions that are begging for answers, and we hope that in the days ahead we'll be able to get answers to some of these questions. But then you can find that story on page 5 of This Day newspaper. Now, moving on to the Vanguard right now, moving on to another story. Now, the first story we're taking on the Vanguard above the title bar is that the Alpa Adebanjo died at 95 with a rider. He stopped eating before his death. Tinubu, another rider, says Tinubu, Buhari, Jonathan Obasanjo, Makinde, Abiodun, Afenifere, the Patriots, Pandef, others mourn. Now, that's on the death of Pa Adebanjo. We also have here another story here on, you can find that on page 5 on the Vanguard newspaper. We have also on page 10 of the Vanguard newspaper, killing fields with a slug. Nigerian loses 805 lives to insecurity violence in 6 weeks. And it has a rider that says 28 soldiers, 5 police officers, 1 EFCC officer killed. You can find that story on page 10 of the Vanguard newspaper. And on health, on the Vanguard newspaper, it reads, a woman with rare genital disorders suffers 5 orgasms daily. You can find that story and take a read on that story on page 24 of the Vanguard newspaper. Also, we have a letter to Atiku, and it says, and you can find that letter to Atiku on page 24 of Saturday Vanguard. Also, you can find the story of Governor Abdulrazak's gender advocacy ends UN recognition. You want to know what President Abdulrazak's gender advocacy and how you want to know about it and how it has earned US advocacy recognition. You can find that story on page 21 of the Saturday Vanguard. Also, you have another big story on Tubaba's marriage drama continues as model react. You can find that story on page 20 of Saturday's Vanguard. And to the big story, we have APC presidency under Buhari, Tinubu, a disaster, and this is coming from Bugaji. Now, with a rider that says PDP, APC, ABGA, Labour, no options. Another rider says rotational presidency outdated, draining Nigerians. And also, you can find, last but not the least on that story, you can find also the picture of the son girl. Now, not forgetting that the big story you can find on page 12, you can find the big story on page 12 of Saturday Vanguard. You can find the big story. Now, what caught my attention here on the story is the killing of military personnel in 6 weeks, and the Vanguard captured it as 805 lives to insecurity. Nigeria loses 805 lives to insecurity violence in 6 weeks. Said 28 soldiers, 5 police officers, 1 EFCC officer. Now, during the course of the week, we had a conversation where we tried to understand not just the death of security officers, but then what happens to the personnel after their demise. What happened to the family of personnel after the demise? Now, this calls for concern. Now, our sympathy goes out to all personnel that have lost, the families of the personnel that have lost their lives. We sympathize with you at this point, and as many Nigerians that have lost their life in the last 6 weeks, 805 by the roll counts. But we hope that there will be more reduced figures even in the next 6 weeks, and the government should be able to put its house in order to ensure that the lives and properties of Nigerians are protected, are guided, are secured. So this is what the government has been saddled with, the responsibility of the government. Now let's go to another story even here on the papers. We have here the Trust newspaper, and it's with the Weekend Trust. It has a big story here, which we've already taken already. We saw that story somewhere around the Nation's newspaper, and its big story it reads 150 million bribe. Binance official accuses 3 lawmakers with a rider, says NSA demanded crypto worth billions. Another rider says another rider reads allegations false FG. Another rider reads Agbese Akpanke calls for proof. Now, we have above the big story, we have Quran convention postponed indefinitely. Quran convention postponed indefinitely. You can find that story on page 26 of the Trust newspaper. You can also find the 150 million bribe. Binance official accuses 3 lawmakers. You can find that story also on the Trust newspaper, although the page was not adequately spelled out. But then, let's move to other stories. We have Kannywood is here to stay. Rabiu Daoshi have said that Kannywood is here to stay. Now you can find that story on page 21 of Weekend Trust. You can also find the story of Tinubu Obasanjo Buhari mourns as Adebanjo dies at 96. That story can be found on page 5 of Trust newspaper. Also, we can find a story here that says dispute over land titles persists despite computerization. You can find that story also. You can find it, it's more like an animation on the Trust newspaper. You can find that story and take a read on that story to know that despite the computerized age and modern technology, how come we are still having land titles issues even in the country? You can take a read on that story on the Trust newspaper. And also we have 23 dies, 48 injured in Kano auto crash. And you can take a read on that story on page 25 of the Trust newspaper. USAID funded Boko Haram other terror organization. US congressman have come out to say you can find that and more stories on page 25 of the Trust newspaper. So you should go ahead right now and go out there and get yourself a copy of the Trust newspaper to be able to know more information on what's going on in the country, even as we've highlighted. But let's move on to the Punch newspaper right now. Now, the Punch newspaper has on its big story, Canada visa snub, AG blows hot, weighs response as embassy battles to deflect criticism. It has a rider, ministers knock Canada, says actions disrespectful. Now, above the title bar, we have Osun monarch alleged is COVID-19, that alleges COVID-19, faces COVID-19 fraud in US. Now, that's quite interesting. Osun monarch allegedly faces COVID-19 fraud trial in USA. Now, you can find that story on page 24 of the Punch, Saturday's Punch. You can find that story on Saturday's Punch, page 24. I also have a story here. It says Tinubu ex-presidents pay tribute as Afenifere leader Adebanjo dies at 96. You can find that story on page 5 of the, you can find that story, I beg your pardon, on page 3 of the Punch newspaper, where it gets punchy. Now you can find also the story on Reps Binance chief trade wars over $150 million allegation. Now this story is one very interesting story, but we won't dabble into the story yet because we don't have sufficient facts to be able to give an analysis on the story. But you can take a read on the story on the Punch, Saturday's Punch, on page, you can find our story on page 9 of Saturday's Punch and take a look of that story. And okay, we have also another story here. Wept insecurity during WAEC, NECO ends over jets about my size. This is coming from Ekiti Varsity students. Said wept secretly during WAEC, NECO exams over jets about just about my age. Okay, about just, I'll take that story again. It says wept secretly during WAEC NECO exams over just about my size. Ekiti Varsity student. You want to find out more on that, you can grab a copy of the Punch newspaper, Saturday's Punch to be precise, and you're already into that conversation. Also, we have another very interesting story here. It says Obasa drags Lagos Assembly Speaker to court. Well, you can find that story also on page 9 of the Punch newspaper. We have here also the story of Two-Face Idibia. We have the Two-Face family alleges musicians missing as controversies over divorce, lawmakers romance rage. You can find that story also on page 17 of the Punch newspaper. Now there's a story here which says I love intelligent men, by Funke Akindele. She has come out to say she loves intelligent men. Now you can find that story on page 16 of the Punch newspaper. Now for me, the story that even captures my attention is a story of this Osun State monarch allegedly faces trial over COVID-19 fraud in US. Now this calls for concern, and one will begin to ask, how did this happen? First, a monarch is supposed to rule monarchically over a people. Now, over locals, over a given defined and precise number of persons, probably in communities, in villages, and what have you. Now, having a conversation that a monarch defraud a community, now this really calls for a very large concern, because how did this happen? How did the monarch got access to the United States of America to be able to first defraud people over the COVID-19? Secondly, how was the monarch able to get to the United States and be able to manipulate the COVID-19 scenario, the pandemic, despite the lockdown in different states and countries? Was it that the lawmaker was already in the United States? Was it that the lawmaker is resident in the United States, or he went for a visit? Was it that the lawmaker was in the United States to seek for some form of assistance for members of his community? So that was what took him to the United States. Again, if we said that a lawmaker is facing trial, allegedly facing trial of COVID-19, an Osun lawmaker, questions now continue to beg for answers. At this point, where is the lawmaker, in Nigeria or in in the United States? Because trial in absence, I don't think it works in the United States. So you need to be present to be able to face trial. How concrete is this particular discourse? Since it's an allegation, an alleged conversation, so allegation rather, we'll just leave it and peg it at that. But there are a lot of questions that are currently begging for answers. We hope to get the right answers in the coming days. Now, if you want to take a read on that story I've told you, you can get that story on Saturday's Punch. To a very large extent, the Punch newspaper was able to provide some form of details, but that details, of course, it's something to go by with. But there are a lot of questions even from this morning that we want to even ask. First, to the Osun State Traditional Rulers Council. We need to ask these questions, the Osun State Traditional Council. So, Osun State Traditional Council, if you're watching at this point in time, this is an open invitation to the Osun State Traditional Council. So please grant us an interview. Let's know what's going on, even at this point. Now, the Governor Adeleke, a lot of questions are begging for answer, even right now that you are piloting the affairs of the good people of Osun State. And one of those questions is, this is under your purview, and an alleged allegation has been labeled on one of the monarchs of Osun State. Now, we want you to a very certain heights. If need be, you can invite Global Television and have an exclusive interview, or have a press briefing, or get your special advisor on traditional and religious matters to talk to us on what is going on, what's the true state of things in Osun State, and what does the law of Osun State state at this point. What does it say at this point? If a traditional ruler is found guilty, if the traditional ruler is found guilty and is being sentenced in the US, what is the implication in Nigeria, especially Osun State? Will it amount to a scenario where there won't be any form of a monarchical head, whether be it absolute monarchy or recognized constitutional monarchy? So would there be a monarch to be able to dictate the traditional stance of us people? Now, let's even hear from people from Osun State. If you're resident in Osun State, of course, and probably you have the local standing to have this conversation, of course we want to hear from you, and because there are a lot of questions that are begging for answers right even from this morning. Well, at this point, this is how far we can go on the newspaper review. We will go for a short break, and when we come back, more to come on Weekend Global Morning. Stay with us as the show continues in a moment. Global Morning is your top morning show here on Global Television.
We bring you fresh news updates daily while delving into a variety of current affairs and topics.
A Global Morning aims to deliver newspaper reviews and latest news with experts on key global issues.
And at the same time, keeping you well informed about important events, both national and internationals.
Global Morning serves as a valuable source of information, helping viewers like you start your day well informed.
Stay connected from Mondays to Sundays to a wide range of the latest news making rounds on Global Morning.
We're on the road to protest.
The president meets all of our demands.
This is Global Morning.
All right, welcome back. I don't see the season of Valentine, and of course, more reports are coming in from various celebrities across the country that are celebrating their wives, especially that of the popular singer, Davido, that was popularly David Adeleke, popularly known as Davido, celebrating his wife Chioma even on Valentine's Day. That's something to go by with. And many families, also husbands, are celebrating their wives, and that has been the picture all over social media space. And we've also had that very Valentine's spice. Of course, Valentine has never disappointed in Nigeria, because we've always seen that euphoria, we've always seen that excitement, love in the air, like you would like to say. We've seen that play out in different quarters across the country, and one of the ways that we've been able to celebrate the Valentine also even here is to go out and see what Nigerians feel and think about Valentine, and what should it be, what does it entail, and where do we go from here as a post-Valentine gift. So it's not just talking about Valentine, it's also talking about the post-Valentine. Valentine is all about love sharing, it's about giving, it's about receiving, and it's about being of immense impact to humanity. Now, having said that, let's move to one very interesting story. Now, throughout the course of the week, one conversation have remained on people's lips, and that is the conversation around the girl from UNIZIK that assaulted a lecturer. But then let's even come back to the academic space right now, where we have NELFUND students lament long delays amid exam anxiety. Now, we have a story here with a student from no fewer than 23 public universities and polytechnics have lamented the delayed disbursement of their approved institutional loans from the Nigerian Education Loan Fund as deadline for tuition payment and examination draws near. Well, you'd recall that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu signs the Student Loan Access to Higher Education Repeal and Reenactment Act into law on April the 3rd, 2024 to provide sustainable higher education funding for Nigerian students. Well, since the fund's commencement, several students across the tertiary institutions have benefited. As of February the 3rd, 2025, NELFUND reported receiving 364.042 thousand students, that is 364,000 students and above, and still counting, student applying applications and disbursement of about above 20 billion for institutional fees, benefiting about above 192 students across the country. Another above 12 billion naira was allocated to about 196 or 169 students, with each receiving 20,000 naira monthly stipends for upkeep. But however, in response to NELFUND verified posts on X during the week, students from several institutions, including the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, Obafemi Awolowo University, Federal University Lokoja, Ladoke Akintola University, and others in northern Nigeria expressed frustrations over the non-disbursement of their approved loans. Many lamented that their school portals were closing in a matter of days, with examinations fast approaching. On Saturday, one of the students wrote on our ex-handle, "I am a university student of Maiduguri University. I applied and was verified since August, yet I have received nothing from this initiative. Do something for us before next Wednesday. I'm in serious financial crisis." Another tweet also raised by says, "NELFUND, my brother hasn't received either the upkeep money or the institutional fees, and his school UNIZIK is closing its portal on Friday, February 14th, which happens to be yesterday. Say, please help." We also have another tweet which says, "NELFUND, please remember us. We applied since May last year and have been verified, but there has been no approval or disbursement." Another tweet reads, "Many students another tweet reads, 10 Oyo students, please help us. We are stranded." Related news, 10 Oyo Poly students are hospitalized or after inhaling poisonous, but that's not even the story. Now, confirming the non-disbursement, Abba Yusuf from the same institution wrote, "Why haven't you disbursed funds for Aliko Dangote University students? Both upkeep and institutional fees remain unpaid. We have been verified since August 2024, yet not a single payment has been made." Now we'll be two more tweets again before we delve into this conversation. Said, "I've been verified since June 2024, yet I haven't received any disbursement, neither institutional fee nor upkeep. My school has started a new academic section, and I have to pay my school fees." Then we'll take a last tweet. We say most times, okay, which says, Tests and exams have begun, yet without paying our tuition fees, we can't register our courses. Well, these and many more conversations are right now begging for answer because anxiety is in the air. Now, we want to hear from Tetfone now. What's the challenge? Because when President Tinubu came out to talk about the student loan, it was a welcome development. Right now, we're seeing students, even on a Nelfund verified social media handle, the X handle, we've seen them come out to allege that they've applied, they've been verified, but nothing has been done on their verification status, and also no disbursements have been made since their verification. Most of them have been verified since as far back as April 2024, May 2024, June 2024, and all what have you. Now, we are asking even here on the weekend edition of Global Television, what is the challenge? Could it be that funds have not been disbursed to Nelfund to be able to do what is needful, or what is the major challenge? Because Nelfund really need to come out at this point to address Nigerian students about what's going on from their end. Come out and tell us what's going on, because this is a matter of trust. Nigerians trust this government, especially Nigerian students have a high level of trust to President Tinubu's administration. Now, because to a very large extent, most administration have not done this particular loan kind of student loan initiative. We've seen bursary being disbursed to students. Of course, we've seen that happen over the years. But talking about loans to students, when you graduate, you get a job, you'll now be able to pay back. We've not seen this play out in the country. This is like the first of its kind. So let's know if there are challenges, because students trust the system. So the system in turn should be able to accommodate some of these lapses. Of course, there will be lapses because it's first of its kind. But come out and tell us what's going on in this particular issue. Why have there not been disbursements so far? Why have there not been disbursements? Or is the disbursement coming in batches? Batch A, Batch B, Batch C, and Batch D. As such, what's the criteria for badging the students? Or what's the criteria for placing them in ranking? What's the criteria for the disbursement? Is it that people that applied in April, May, June, and probably July are going to get disbursed somewhere around probably March or April? Or is it that people that applied for, is the duration for this loan going to be above 5 to 6 years? So what I meant is above 5 to 6 months period of application. Now, if this is the case, won't it defeat the essence of the loan in itself, where people will have to, at this point, apply the school being section? Because I know most schools in Nigeria are in section for a period of 4-5 months. Now, if it takes a period of 6 months for disbursements to happen, then won't this defeat the essence of the loan application in itself? We've seen Nigerian students coming out on social media to say, hey, exam is starting, registrations and portals will be closed as far back as even yesterday, as way back as yesterday, I beg your pardon. We've seen them come out to say that, hey, to a certain level, we've not even gotten the disbursement, talking of the monthly stipends that was promised. Now, we need Nelfund to come out and tell us what is really going on in the educational sector, so that we'll be able to know that, okay, this is what it is at that point. So let's know also, these Nigerians begin to think that it was more of a hype, it was more of a propaganda, that is, the loan itself was a propaganda. These Nigerians begin to think again that the loan system as introduced by President Bola Tinubu, is a scam. Least Nigeria begin to think that the disbursement process is just fictitious and it favors just one quarter or one side of the divide of the country. So least they become speculative and speculations here and there. Least questions keep begging for answers. Least we get to that point where we'll now say the president promised at one point in time, but it was an audio conversation, because we saw the launch, we saw the disbursement modalities, and we've also seen the website. We've seen all of this, and but students can't get the loan. At least there are questions that will begin to arise, and we hope that the government will have a listening ear at this point, and not just talking to the government. Also, we hope to see more practical dimension of NANS, which is the Nigerian Association, the Association of Nigerian Students, National Association of Nigerian Students, NANS. We hope to see the president of NANS come out at this point. This is your constituency. What's going on? A their form of conversation right now with the presidency to ensure smooth disbursement, or as the process of disbursement being politicized that students can no longer get their funds. Now these are questions that are begging for answers, and we need answers to this. So we're calling them NELD Fund also. Now we're calling them two parties, right? And we're calling that of Osun State government and the traditional rulers of Osun State. So please avail themselves to talk to us even on air. Let's know what's going on in Osun State in terms of the modalities for when the alleged the monarch of Osun State monarch that is currently facing trial in the United States. Of course, we captured that story in the newspaper review, and also we also called the NELD Fund at this point to please avail yourself and let us get clarity to this issue and know what's going on in NELD Fund. Let's get all angles of the story so we can eliminate the fears that is already posed by to Nigerian students, so that Nigerian students can have their stipends, and also, of course, it's not free. It's not some form of bursary that was given to them. It's more of application of a loan, and they're going to definitely pay back. But let's know what it is, what's going on. Let's hear from NELD Fund. Has there been an interruption in with the banks that you've partnered with, the donors? Have they pulled out? Is the fund being affected by the naira, the rise or the fall of the naira against the dollar? Is the fund being affected by political will? Is the fund being affected? Because if 1 in 5 students are coming out to talk on a social media platform, now we really need to tackle this, because a student that is destabilized automatically will not be able to stay focused on his or her education. And once this happens, it takes us to that point where we begin to graduate unbaked graduates. We begin to dish out and churn out unqualified professionals. We begin to give out and churn out and dish out a lot of unemployable graduates. Now, we don't want a scenario like this. We don't want a situation like this. So we're calling on all parties that are involved to please come out and speak to us on the show even this morning. Well, this is how far we can go this morning on Weekend on Global Morning. Do remember that you can join the conversation on our various social media handle, and of course we will definitely get back to you on your take, and also see how we can do a follow-up conversation to ensure that your opinion, your views are directed to the appropriate quarters. Let the conversation start coming in on our various social media handle displayed on the screen right now. Don't forget that you can also download our app, Exciting. You can download the app of Global Television app. Is on Android and iOS stores. So you can go to your Google Play Store and download the Global Television app. Global TV, just type Global TV app and it will bring you to us, and you can watch us anywhere, in the world. You can join the conversation. You can let us know what your thoughts are per time. And of course, you won't miss out on your favorite programs here on Global Television. My name is Godwin Sunday. Always remember that peace and unity are the pathways to progress. From all of us here on Global Morning, we say do have a fantastic weekend and enjoy the rest of your day.
Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure. If you don't say we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rate as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call the police station, before they even leave, they take permission from
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
the struggle as a strike.
Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a life. The president never gave me any deadline.